I'm standing in the kitchen, sunlight spilling across the counters, the smell of fresh cinnamon rolls lingering in the air. My daughter, Emma, hums a little tune as she sets the tiny paper plates on the table. It's Saturday morning, and I promised her a small birthday breakfast before we head out for the day. I've been up since 5, carefully preparing everything. Her favorite pancakes shaped like hearts, strawberries sliced just right, and the little maple syrup bottle she loves that drips so slowly it's almost mesmerizing. Outside, the driveway is empty. Usually by now, my parents and siblings would be pulling up, carrying gifts and bright smiles. But today, my phone stays quiet. No texts. No, we're on our way. Just the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional chirp of Emma's small bird, Peaches, hopping in her cage. I feel a flicker of doubt, but I push it aside. Maybe traffic. Maybe someone forgot their keys. I've learned to hope anyway, even when hope feels fragile. Emma runs to hug me. Mom, will Grandpa like my drawing? She asks, her wide eyes shining. I kneel, brushing her hair behind her ears, smiling as warmly as I can. I'm sure he will, Pumpkin. He'll love it. I can't shake the tiny ache, though, that maybe he won't even be here. The house feels too quiet, too heavy for a morning meant to feel light. I place the plates on the table and sit beside her, watching her pour syrup with delicate care. The pancakes steam gently, and for a moment, I let myself imagine laughter filling the room, voices overlapping in chatter, Emma squealing with joy as someone swoops her up. But the quiet is persistent, creeping in from the empty chairs around the table. My heart tightens without warning. I glance at my phone again. Nothing. The clock ticks a little too loudly. I picture my parents' smiles, the ones that used to feel warm, and wonder when the sharp edges crept in. I know I've spent months paying bills, covering tuition, handling repairs, balancing every expense meticulously, yet somehow, that effort always seems invisible. Sometimes I think they almost forget I exist outside of the money I manage. Emma places a tiny fork in her mouth and looks up. Mom, are they coming? Her question is innocent, but it cuts sharper than any words from an argument. I squeeze her hand, holding back a sigh. I think they will, sweetie, I whisper. But my own voice sounds brittle to me. I want to believe it, but doubt has already started its slow crawl across my chest. The doorbell rings suddenly, startling both of us. I jump, hope flaring. Emma runs to open it, expecting laughter, greetings, maybe a hug. Instead, it's a delivery box sitting alone on the porch. I lift it carefully, noticing the label. From the family, my fingers brush the edges. Inside, I find a small card with a single line. We think you're making too much fuss over little things. Stop worrying so much. No gift. No warmth. Just judgment. My chest tightens. Emma's face falls, her small hands clutching the card as she asks softly, Mom, is that all? I swallow the lump in my throat, forcing a smile. Looks like it, Pumpkin, I murmur. The pancakes are cooling. The syrup has begun to harden. Emma sits beside me quietly, her small shoulders slumping. I take a deep breath, trying to steady the sting that's spreading in my chest. I glance around the kitchen. The sunlight now seems dimmer, and feel the faintest tremor of a thought I've been avoiding. Maybe this morning, like so many others, I am alone in giving everything I have, and it's never enough. A soft sigh escapes me, almost silent, as I tuck my hair behind my ear. Outside, the empty driveway glares back at me, and I realize, today, the warmth I tried to build might flicker out completely. The morning drags on. I clean the counter for what feels like the 5th time, stacking dishes, wiping crumbs, pretending the quiet isn't screaming at me. Emma sits beside me, playing with her toy car, her small brow furrowed. Mom, are they mad at me? She asks, her voice tiny. I force a smile, brushing it off. No, sweetie, they're just busy. But my heart knows better. By noon, my parents' old minivan finally appears in the driveway. I watch from the window, holding my breath. But instead of laughter and hugs, only silence greets us. They step out slowly, glancing at me as if I've grown invisible. Their smiles are thin, forced, half-hearted gestures that do nothing to warm the chill already settled in my chest. "Happy birthday, Emma," my father says, his voice neutral. He sets down a small box, barely glancing at the card. My mother steps inside and peers at the breakfast table, frowning at the untouched pancakes. "You're making too much fuss," she mutters under her breath, just loud enough for me to hear. I freeze. The words hit like cold rain. After all the hours spent preparing, all the effort I poured into this morning, it's dismissed. And Emma, sweet, innocent Emma, looks at me, confusion and hurt in her eyes. "Mom, did I do something wrong?" I kneel beside her, forcing calm into my voice. "No, pumpkin. You did everything right." But inside, I feel the sting of rejection. My own family sees me as the problem, the overworrying one, the one making life harder for everyone else, even when I'm the one paying every bill, covering every expense, holding the household together. My neighbor, Claire, knocks softly on the open door. She's carrying a small basket of muffins, her expression gentle. "I thought you could use some company," she says, her eyes scanning the tension in the room. I force a smile, grateful for her presence. "Thanks, Claire," I murmur, letting her sit at the table. Her calm, real kindness feels like a fragile thread keeping me from unraveling completely. The day continues in a haze of silent disappointment. My siblings barely touch the food. They joke half-heartedly, dismissive glances traded across the table. A half-eaten muffin sits on a plate, abandoned. A balloon I tied to the chair droops. Emma tries to keep her spirit bright, but even she can't ignore the tension. I check my phone again. Messages from family, none mentioning Emma's birthday. One text from my sister reads, "You're making a big deal out of nothing." Just like that, my effort, my love, my financial sacrifices, all reduced to overreaction. I feel tears sting behind my eyes, but I push them down, hiding them behind a smile for Emma. After what feels like hours, my father stands abruptly. "We need to go," he says, grabbing his coat. My mother follows, silent. Emma's face crumples. "They're leaving already?" she whispers. I take her hand, trying to steady her trembling. "Yes, sweetie, for now." I watch them retreat down the driveway. The minivan disappears around the corner, leaving a quiet void behind. The front door clicks softly, sealing the emptiness inside. Emma looks up at me, eyes wide, hurt still glimmering. "Mom, am I not enough?" I squeeze her small hand, feeling the weight of the question. "You are more than enough," I whisper, though inside, a part of me begins to question the value of my own efforts. The house feels colder, the light dimmer, and for the first time in years, I feel truly small, like all the sacrifices, all the money I've poured into keeping this family afloat, have vanished into thin air, unseen and unappreciated. I sit down beside Emma, letting her lean into me. The empty chairs around the table, the abandoned muffin, the balloon sagging in silence, all of it presses against me, whispering a truth I've been avoiding. Maybe being a burden isn't just in their words, it's the way they make me feel every single day. Sitting at the kitchen table with Emma leaning against me, I can't stop the memories from surfacing. They come in fragments, like old photographs fading at the edges. I remember the first time I realized the pattern wasn't just occasional, it was a rhythm that had defined my entire life. I was 12, counting the bills with my mother hovering over my shoulder. "You're the responsible one," she'd said, her voice soft but insistent. "So don't make mistakes." Mistakes, in our house, weren't just errors. They were character flaws, badges of failure to be noted and remembered. Through my teen years, the pattern deepened. I covered overdue electricity bills because my siblings forgot. I bought groceries with my own allowance when my father misplaced his paycheck. At 15, I had saved $500 from odd jobs just to pay for the broken water heater that no one else would claim. And every time I stepped up, the praise was fleeting, a quiet nod at best, but the blame was loud, public, and relentless. I remember one Christmas vividly. I had scraped together $400 to buy thoughtful gifts for everyone, working extra shifts at the diner. The tree was decorated with care, the wrapping paper meticulously folded. Yet my mother remarked casually, "You spent too much. You don't understand money yet." My siblings got expensive gadgets, shiny and unearned, while I was lectured for giving too much of myself. That moment, small in appearance, planted a seed that would grow quietly inside me for years. No matter how much I gave, it would never be enough. Even as an adult, the pattern persisted. I paid rent for the house my parents lived in, covered repair bills for the car my brother claimed, and balanced their credit card mistakes because they couldn't be bothered. Over the past 5 years alone, I tracked it meticulously. $12 for 30 in unshared expenses, $3,200 in household bills last month, and countless minor reimbursements that went unacknowledged. And yet, somehow, the narrative remained that I was careless, demanding, or, worse, a burden. Social gatherings amplified the sting. A cousin's wedding, my niece's first recital, any occasion where money or effort was involved turned into a stage for judgment. "You always make it complicated," they'd whisper. "You expect too much." I tried to laugh it off, to blend in, but the undercurrent of blame never left. Over time, I learned to smile through the hurt, to calculate my contributions silently, to absorb the criticism without complaint. Even digitally, the betrayal found me. I remember scrolling through a family group chat one morning, coffee in hand, only to find a post. "Some people think they do more than they really do." Funny how they never get recognized. No name was mentioned, but everyone knew who it meant. My heart sank, a familiar thud of humiliation echoing in the quiet kitchen. I had spent hours paying bills, making sure everything ran smoothly, yet my integrity was being mocked in front of everyone. I flash forward to last week, when I meticulously updated my spreadsheet, the one I keep for every cent I've paid. Electricity, water, groceries, school supplies, car repairs, medical bills. I had documented $8,765 over 3 months alone. I knew if they ever questioned it, the numbers would speak louder than my words. Still, I feared the inevitable dismissal. They had spent my entire life discounting my truth, questioning my value, ignoring the concrete proof of my labor. And yet, amid the resentment and repeated disappointment, there was clarity. Each incident, each unfair word, each sigh of disapproval had formed a map. I knew exactly where the pressure points were, the moments when their words could sting the most. I could anticipate the criticism, the judgment, the accusations before they were even spoken. The betrayal had become predictable, like a storm I'd weathered countless times. Emma tugs my sleeve gently, pulling me from the memories. Her innocence mirrors my own, the child I was and the child I want to protect. I realize now why this hurts so deeply. The betrayal isn't new. It's the culmination of years, decades even, of being used and dismissed. Every unpaid bill, every unthanked effort, every sly comment had built the weight of expectation on my shoulders. And the truth, the one truth I cling to, is that I've carried it all, quietly, responsibly, fully. And yet, I am still labeled a burden. The computer hums beside me, the spreadsheet open, glowing against the dim light of the kitchen. Numbers line the columns like proof written in black and white. Everything I paid, everything I covered. The documentation is meticulous. Every cent accounted for. And for the first time, I feel a spark, not hope, not fear, but resolve. Maybe, finally, the record of my efforts could speak for me. Maybe they could not dismiss the truth this time. It was a Wednesday afternoon when the message arrived. I was checking emails at my small kitchen desk, Emma coloring at the table beside me. The subject line made my stomach twist. Immediate payment required. I clicked, hands trembling, only to see a PDF attachment detailing an alleged shared expense. $1, $8.50 for home repairs my parents insisted I had never contributed to. My heart slammed against my ribs. Every figure in that document was inaccurate, inflated, or outright fabricated. I had already paid those bills months ago, carefully, meticulously. I'd kept the receipts, the bank statements, the emails confirming transfers. My chest tightened, a rush of heat and panic flooding me. I felt my hands shake as I clutched the letter. I could hear Emma's soft humming stop, her head tilting in curiosity. "Mom, are you okay?" I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. "Yes, I'm fine, pumpkin." But inside, disbelief and anger collided in a storm. For years, I had carried the weight of responsibility for every penny, every repair, every bill. And now, once again, I was being told I owed more, without cause, without recognition. I replayed the words in my head. Immediate payment required. It wasn't just a demand, it was a declaration. You are still a burden, and we refuse to see the truth. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. Tight chest, shallow breaths, trembling fingers. My stomach turned, a knot of frustration and helplessness tightening with every second. I tried to reach out, calling my father first. The line went straight to voicemail. I left a careful, controlled message. "I've paid everything. Let's review the records before assuming anything." Silence. Then my mother's text. "Stop making excuses. You think you know better, but you're overreacting." Overreacting. That familiar word. The same one I'd heard my whole life, often in the quietest moments when the sting hit the deepest. Every ounce of effort, every dollar, every hour I spent keeping our household afloat dismissed as overreaction. And this time it wasn't just words. It was an accusation tied to money, my integrity, my responsibility, my very sense of self. I glanced at the spreadsheet open on my laptop, rows of bills, receipts, and transfers glowing softly in the dim light. Each number was proof they would never see unless forced to. My pulse slowed as clarity cut through the storm of emotion. They'll never change. They'll never see the truth unless I make them. Emma reached for my hand. "Mom, will they be mad?" Her innocent voice cut through the haze of fury and disbelief. I squeezed her small hand, feeling warmth return amidst the storm. "Not if we show them the truth," I whispered, and for the first time that day, my voice carried resolve instead of fear. I stood, walking through the living room, staring at the faded family photographs on the wall. I remembered all the times I had covered mistakes, all the times I had absorbed blame, all the times I had been told I was too sensitive or too much. Each memory added fuel to the fire simmering in my chest. The time for silent endurance was over. For the first time in years, a spark of rebellion ignited. It was quiet at first, a flicker of resolve that steadied my hands and cleared my mind. I would no longer allow their dismissals to define me. I would no longer shoulder the blame they refused to acknowledge. The documents would speak. The numbers would not lie. I looked down at Emma, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" she asked softly. I nodded, meeting her gaze with a newfound steadiness. "Yes, sweetie. We're going to be okay. We just have to stand firm." That afternoon, the weight that had pressed on me for years felt a little lighter, not because the problem was gone, but because for the first time, I had decided I would no longer carry it silently. I would no longer be the invisible scapegoat. The spark of rebellion had formed, and it would not be extinguished. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table, Emma asleep in her room, the house quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. I opened my laptop and pulled up my financial spreadsheet, every payment meticulously documented. Rent, utilities, groceries, repairs, school expenses, every single cent accounted for, every bank transfer dated and confirmed. I had spent hours over the past week ensuring nothing could be questioned. Tonight, the time for proof had arrived. I drafted an email to my parents, calm and precise. No accusations, no emotion leaking through, just facts. Attached are all the records for the past 6 months. Every expense has been covered by me, as agreed. Please review them carefully. Let's resolve this matter with clarity. I attached PDFs of bank statements, receipts, and invoices, each highlighted, each cross-checked. I hesitated for a moment before hitting send, feeling a mix of fear and empowerment. Then came the smaller acts of boundary, the quiet reclaiming of control. I canceled shared access to the family credit card they had misused for years. I locked the mailbox they had rifled through without permission. I even set up automatic payments under my own supervision, removing the possibility of unilateral demands. Every act was deliberate, restrained, but symbolic. This was my household, my responsibility, and I would no longer be vilified for their choices. The air in the house felt different as I moved through it. Light streaming through the kitchen windows seemed brighter. The soft creak of the floor beneath my feet sounded less oppressive. I paused by the living room window, looking out at the quiet street, and realized I could breathe more freely than I had in years. For the first time in a long time, I was acting not out of obligation, but out of self-respect. The next morning, Emma bounded into the kitchen with her usual energy, her small arms wrapped around my legs.
Mom.
"Can we have pancakes again?" she asked, eyes wide. I laughed softly, feeling a spark of joy I hadn't felt in months. We cooked together, laughing at the mess we made, sharing moments that felt genuine and unpressured. It was a small victory, but one I treasured. Later, I placed a few items I had purchased for the week on the counter: groceries, school supplies, even a little treat for Emma. I realized I had the freedom to plan our lives without the constant shadow of judgment. My rebellion wasn't loud. It wasn't a dramatic confrontation. It was deliberate, steady, and empowering. That afternoon, I revisited the spreadsheet one last time, reviewing each figure with satisfaction. I had done everything I could to prove my integrity. The numbers were indisputable. My efforts were documented, undeniable, and for the first time, I felt a sense of moral victory welling up inside me. A subtle joy settled over the house. The simple act of preparing a quiet dinner, setting the table just for Emma and me, felt like reclaiming a sacred space. Light bounced off the walls, warm and soft, as if the house itself approved of the boundaries I was asserting. The sound of Emma's laughter rang through the rooms, bright and liberating, a reminder that love wasn't conditional on validation from those who failed to see my worth. By evening, I had organized the paperwork in a neat folder, ready to present to anyone who doubted me. Every receipt, every invoice, every payment record was in order. I placed it on the counter, a symbol of my control and independence. The tension I had carried for years felt lighter. I was no longer a passive participant in my own life. I was asserting, deliberately and calmly, that my efforts mattered and my boundaries would be respected. I looked around the kitchen, the familiar smells of dinner filling the air, Emma humming beside me, and felt the first true sense of freedom in years. The rebellion wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was real. I had said, in actions far more powerful than words, no. And for the first time, it felt enough. It came 2 days later, just as I was folding laundry in the living room. The sudden pounding on the front door made me jump. "Open up," my father's voice bellowed, sharp and demanding. My heart raced. Emma peeked from the hallway, wide-eyed, clutching her stuffed rabbit. I took a deep breath and moved to the door, steadying my voice. "I'm here. What's wrong?" I opened it just enough to see them. My father glaring, my mother frowning, my younger brother smirking like this was all a game. They shoved a stack of papers toward me, their accusations loud and fast. "We know you've been lying about payments. You've been overpaying yourself, hoarding money, and we're not going to take it anymore." The words hit like a physical blow. For a moment, my chest felt trapped, my vision narrowing. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, but I had already prepared for this moment. I reached for the folder on the counter, the one containing every payment, every invoice, every bank statement meticulously organized. "Let's look at the facts," I said calmly, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. I opened the folder and laid the documents out between us. Everything I've paid is accounted for. Every bill, every repair, every shared expense. Here's the proof. I pointed to each carefully highlighted page, showing the exact amounts, the dates, the confirmation numbers. Their eyes flickered, disbelief flashing briefly before anger flared again. "You think numbers make up for how selfish you've been?" my mother shouted. My father stepped closer, his finger jabbing at the folder. "We raised you to contribute, not to control everything." Emma's small voice trembled from the hallway. Mom, are they going to take you away? My heart clenched. I knelt beside her, holding her tightly. No, sweetie. I'm right here. We'll handle this together. A neighbor, Mr. Thompson, had noticed the commotion and stepped onto the porch. He observed quietly, arms crossed, his presence somehow grounding. Is there a problem here? He asked. His calm authority cut through the shouting like a knife. Ma'am, sir, if she has records of payments and receipts, that's objective proof. Yelling won't change the facts. My parents faltered for a moment. My brother muttered under his breath, unsure. The tension hung thick in the air. Emma squeezed my hand, her trust in me silent but unshakable. I realized then that I didn't need to raise my voice to assert control. The proof, the calmness, and the boundaries I had established were louder than their anger. Still, the confrontation wasn't over. My father slammed the door hard as he left, and my mother muttered insults before following him. I heard the tires of the car squeal as they drove away, the sound echoing down the street. For a moment, the house seemed to shake with the weight of the battle just fought. I sank onto the couch, finally letting the tension leave my body. Emma climbed into my lap, her arms around my neck. Mom, did we win? She asked softly. I hugged her tightly, feeling a wave of relief and quiet pride. We did, pumpkin. We stood our ground. That's what matters. The house was quiet again, the chaos gone, but the victory was real. I had faced them, firm and composed, without yelling, without breaking. My boundaries were intact, my truth undeniable. And for the first time, I realized something profound. Standing up calmly and resolutely could feel more powerful than any confrontation fueled by anger. I glanced at the folder of records, now resting on the coffee table. Each page was more than numbers. It was proof of my integrity, my dedication, my worth. And with Emma beside me, I knew that no amount of manipulation or blame could shake the foundation I was building, not for her and not for myself. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she whispered, Mom, I'm proud of you. Her words settled in my chest like warm sunlight. For once, I wasn't defined by their accusations. I was defined by the quiet strength I had claimed and the proof that no one could deny. The day after the confrontation, the house felt lighter. The tension that had wrapped around me like a heavy cloak for years began to loosen. Emma played in the living room, her laughter echoing off the walls, a sound that no amount of family judgment could taint. I finally allowed myself to breathe. By mid-morning, there was a soft knock at the door. I opened it to find Claire, my neighbor, holding a small basket of homemade banana bread and a note. Thought you might need a little pick-me-up, she said gently, her eyes warm. The note read, You're doing the right thing. Stand firm and know we see you. For the first time in a long while, I felt recognized. Not for the bills I'd paid, not for the tasks I'd done, but simply for being a good person doing her best. Over the next few days, support trickled in quietly but steadily. My coworker, Jenna, dropped by with a gift card for groceries, insisting, You shouldn't have to shoulder everything alone. The local teacher I had volunteered with sent a message, acknowledging my consistent efforts with the children's programs. Even Mr. Thompson, the neighbor who had witnessed the confrontation, checked in, offering help with anything I needed around the house. It was a small, tangible network of care, yet it felt revolutionary. I realized how different true support is from obligation or expectation. No one was here to judge, demand, or criticize. No one was here to remind me I was a burden. Instead, people were here simply to help because they wanted to, not because they had to. I began organizing my finances more intentionally. The spreadsheets, once a defensive tool, became a roadmap for my new life. I noticed a surplus I hadn't realized was there. Extra funds that had been lost in the chaos of trying to keep everyone else's mistakes in check. I breathed more easily, felt a sense of control that had been absent for years. Every payment I had made, every expense I had managed, now validated itself in a world where people recognized effort rather than belittling it. Emma noticed too. She was more confident, more at ease. When she recounted school events, she spoke with pride rather than apprehension. Watching her grow, unburdened by the shadows that had weighed me down, filled me with quiet joy. One evening, as the sun poured golden light into the kitchen, I sat at the counter reviewing my financial records. I smiled, thinking about how far I had come. I didn't need the approval of those who had dismissed me. I had proven it to myself. Each figure, each document, each organized file was a silent testament to my independence, my responsibility, and my resilience. Even small gestures became meaningful. A note from a friend, a loaf of bread from a neighbor, Emma's bright drawings, all reminders that love and support exist outside of obligation. I felt a deep sense of gratitude, a recognition that while family may fail us, community can heal us. That night, I tucked Emma into bed. She hugged me tightly, whispering, "Mom, thank you for everything." I stroked her hair, letting the warmth of her words seep into my soul. I realized that in this aftermath, in this quiet, unpressured space, I was learning something vital. True support doesn't demand repayment. It doesn't come with judgment. It comes freely, and it can change everything. I stepped into the living room, glancing around at the now bright house. The sunlight reflected off the polished counters, the soft hum of the refrigerator a gentle backdrop. For the first time, I felt the house wasn't just a space I maintained out of duty. It felt bigger, lighter, freer. I knew then that this was the beginning of something real, a life where boundaries were respected, where effort was recognized, and where Emma and I could thrive without fear of being dismissed or undervalued. The weeks that followed were quiet, but transformative. Mornings began with calm routines instead of rushed chaos. Emma and I would make breakfast together, her small hands pressing dough into pancakes while I brewed coffee. The rhythm was ours, uninterrupted by criticism or judgment. Each simple act felt like reclaiming a piece of life that had been overshadowed by years of responsibility and unacknowledged effort. I painted the living room walls a soft, warm shade of beige, sunlight bouncing off the fresh paint and filling the space with life. Each brushstroke felt like a declaration. This house belongs to us now, not to the shadow of judgment that had haunted it for decades. Emma watched eagerly, offering her own small swipes of paint, giggling when she got it on her fingers. The house felt alive, a reflection of our freedom rather than a stage for criticism. I continued to manage our finances, but differently now. The spreadsheets were no longer armor, they were tools for planning a life we deserved. Bills were paid, savings were growing, and for the first time in years, I could plan for small joys, a new book for Emma, a weekend trip, even a modest dinner with friends. The burden that had once defined me was replaced by deliberate choice, each decision grounded in self-respect and foresight. Emma thrived alongside me. She spoke up more at school, laughed louder, and moved through the world with a confidence that mirrored the calm I was building at home. Watching her bloom was a constant reminder that protecting boundaries didn't just help me, it gave her a model of strength and independence. Even when my family attempted to reach out, I responded with calm firmness. My father's brief phone call, my sister's tentative message, even my mother's insistence on meeting in person, I declined politely but resolutely. Boundaries, I had learned, were acts of love for myself as much as they were protection from harm. I refused to let old patterns resurface. In this new life, positive connections began to flourish. Jenna, my coworker, became a regular friend. We shared meals, commiserated about work, and laughed at small, absurd moments in life. I even met Alex, a kind and patient man at a local bookstore who appreciated the warmth and resilience Emma and I brought into every interaction. There was no rush, no expectation, just the slow, genuine building of connection. Symbolic gestures marked our renewal. Fresh flowers on the windowsill, a small framed photo of Emma and me laughing at the park, the soft hum of new routines, all of it reflected the life we were crafting intentionally. Each day, I noticed the light feeling brighter, the rooms quieter yet fuller, the weight of obligation lifted just slightly more. I realized that this rebuilding wasn't a single act, It was a series of choices. Choosing calm over conflict, joy over resentment, boundaries over acquiescence. Each decision reinforced the truth I had carried in my spreadsheet and in my heart. My efforts mattered. My worth wasn't defined by those who had dismissed me, and my love for Emma didn't require validation from anyone else. As evening fell, I sat by the window, Emma asleep in her room, and allowed myself to marvel at the change. The house was no longer a site of judgment or invisibility. It was a home, a space of warmth, growth, and independence. The rebellion I had started weeks ago had matured into a life rebuilt, not from anger, but from deliberate care, quiet empowerment, and the undeniable proof of my worth. A year has passed since that tense Wednesday afternoon. The house is alive with soft laughter, sunlight streaming through windows adorned with curtains Emma picked herself. Outside, the garden blooms in colors we planted together. Bright marigolds, cheerful daisies, and a small tree that promises fruit in the coming season. Every corner of this home reflects care, intention, and peace, a sharp contrast to the heaviness that once defined it. It's Emma's birthday again. She runs into the living room, her cheeks flushed with excitement, her small hands clutching a handmade card she crafted for me. I watch, heart full, as she beams with pride. This morning, the driveway is quiet, but the house is filled with life, warmth, and love that isn't conditional on approval from those who never recognized our worth. I place the card on the table and read it silently. Her words are simple. Mom, you are the best. I love you. No one else needs to validate that truth. The love in this home, nurtured with boundaries, proof of effort, and shared joy, is enough. From the kitchen, I watch Emma arrange breakfast with the same care she did last year. Pancakes shaped like hearts, strawberries neatly sliced, syrup slowly dripping. The light in the room feels different now, softer, steadier, freer. The empty chairs that once symbolized rejection have been replaced by spaces for genuine connection, friends who have become family, neighbors who care, and the quiet presence of Emma's joy. Occasionally, my parents or siblings attempt to reconnect. Small gestures, a birthday text, a message asking how we are, arrive. I respond calmly, kindly but firmly. Boundaries are intact. There is no rush for reconciliation, no pressure to reinsert toxicity into our lives. Any contact now is on my terms, guided by respect, honesty, and self-preservation. I take a moment to glance at the financial folder I once used as armor. It sits neatly on the counter, a symbol not of fear or confrontation but of empowerment and clarity. Each receipt, each payment, each careful record stands as proof, not just to them, but to me, that I am capable, responsible, and worthy of respect. Emma laughs from the kitchen. I walk toward her, letting the sunlight brush across my face, feeling a profound sense of peace. The house, once heavy with judgment and unacknowledged effort, now hums with freedom. We have built this life ourselves, carefully, intentionally, and it is ours alone. I pick up my journal, writing down reflections from the past year. Real family shows up. Boundaries create peace. Effort, when true, is never wasted. The words feel steady, a summary of everything I've learned, everything I've endured, and everything I've gained. As the day unfolds, I watch Emma's happiness, our quiet routines, the sun moving across our home. The light touches the walls, the flowers, the framed photos. I inhale deeply, a sense of completion settling into my chest. We have survived judgment, dismissal, and betrayal. We have built a life rooted in truth, proof, and love. And finally, I whisper to myself, softly but firmly, freedom.